Hello, so welcome to another class. We have learned how to solve 2 by 2 games. We have learned how to solve 2 by n games, and we have learned how to solve m by 2 games. But what if we want to solve games with payoff matrix m by n, where m can be any number and n can be any number? Okay, so over here the size of the payoff matrix, it can be really huge, maybe 5 cross 4, 4 cross 5, 5 cross 6, and any number. We had been doing, okay, where 2 by n, okay, only 2 rows, n columns, or we have been doing only n columns and 2 rows. But if we have something like this, then it becomes very complicated. So what we will do today is we will try to solve those kind of games by using the dominance property. It doesn't work for all games, but it will work for some. For some, if you are lucky, okay, this dominance property, it can reduce the size of the payoff matrix. So this is used to reduce the size of the payoff matrix. To reduce the size of the payoff matrix. Okay, so usually, okay, what happens is the size of the payoff matrix, maybe it will be reduced to a 2 by 2 game. If it is reduced to a 2 by 2 game, then you can solve it accordingly. Similarly, if it is reduced to a 2 by n game, then you can solve it by using graphical method. And also, if it is reduced to an m by 2 game, then you can solve it by using graphical method. For a 2 by 2 game, you can easily solve it just by using the formula lambda, okay, and all those things. Okay, so now let us see what is this dominance property. Just have a look at this example. Okay, A has 2 strategies, A1 and A2. Okay, B can have so many strategies. Let us see. Okay, let us think of it in this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you are player A, which strategy would you choose? Would you choose A1 or would you choose A2? Right? I mean, like, you can easily see that you will choose that strategy which will guarantee a higher payoff. So naturally, you will choose the strategy A2. How did you reach to that conclusion? It is because 4 is greater than 1, 5 is greater than 2, and 6 it is greater than 3. So you will eliminate this strategy A1. Okay, but if you are player B, which strategy would you choose? Naturally, because you want to reduce the loss, so that is why you will choose strategy B1. Okay, so over here you are deleting the strategy B2 and you will be deleting the strategy B3. Okay, so this is very important. So what I've written over here on top is you just have to delete the small rows and you just have to delete the big columns. That is basically the dominance property. But if you want to write it properly, okay, so the dominance property, we can state it like this. First, we will have to define what are the dominant rows and what are the dominated rows. Or maybe dominant row and dominated row. Okay, I will write it like this. A row R, okay, maybe R, okay, is set to dominate the row R, okay, maybe RL, if all the entries of Rk are greater than the corresponding entries of RL. Okay, so if you are writing down the rows, okay, it will be something like this. Okay, since we are interested in the k at row and the l at row, maybe the k at row will look something like this: ak1, ak2, ak3, and so on up to akn. And the l at row will look something like this: al1, al2, al3 up to aln. Okay, so over here we will have greater or equal. This one is ak1. Okay, so if ak1 is greater or equal to al1, if ak2 greater or equal to al2, ak3 is greater or equal to al3, and so on. If all the entries of this row, they are greater or equal to the entries of this row, then this one is the dominant row and this one is the dominated row. This one is dominant and this one is dominated. Okay, so the row Rk dominates the row Rl. Then that is, if A, Ki, Akj is greater or equal to Alj for all j equal 1 to n. Okay, so if this happens, then we can say that then Rk is the dominant row and Rl is the dominated row. Okay, Rk dominates Rl, or you can say Rl is dominated by Rk. What about for columns? Okay, this is in the case for rows. For columns, the definition is just changes slightly. Okay, column Ck, I will be using Ck set to dominate the column Cl if all the entries of Ck are smaller or equal to, lesser or equal to, or equal than the corresponding entries of Cl. If we want to write it down in this kind of notation, we can write it as Aik smaller or equal AIL for all I equal 1 up to m. So over here we can say that Ck is the dominant column and Cl is the dominated column. Cl is the dominated column. So this is what happens. Okay, so over here the dominance property states that we can delete the dominated rows and we can delete the dominated columns. So after defining that, we can state the dominance property. The dominance property states that, number one, we can delete the dominated rows or the dominated columns can be deleted. Okay, but instead of rows, we can say instead of using rows or columns, we can easily replace that one with strategies. So the dominated strategies can be deleted. After the deletion, we can form the new payoff matrix. After deletion of such strategies, the size of the payoff matrix is reduced. The size of the payoff matrix is reduced. And after reducing the size, we can again delete 3. After reducing the size, we can again delete the dominated strategies. Again, delete the dominated strategies. Okay, but again, we can summarize all this just by saying that we should delete the small rows and we should delete the big columns. Let us have a look at an example so that it will be clear for you how to write it. Okay, particularly when you are having to solve games of this problem, of this nature. Solve. Okay, it is a very big matrix. B1. Okay, there are 6 columns. B1, B2, B3, B4, B5 and B6. And we are having 5 rows. Okay, so over here we will be having these entries: 6, 9, 3, 1, 1, 3, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 3, 7, 11. Okay, I will write -1, 0, 2, -1, 6, 5, 3, -1, 4, 0, 5, 6. So I hope it is clear. Alright, so B has 6 strategies and A has 5 strategies. Okay, let us try to use the dominance property. Solution. Okay, if you see properly, okay, you have to be very particular. You can see that this row A3, it dominates this row A4. Just have a look. 4 is greater than -1, 2 is greater than 0, 3 is greater than 2, 3 is greater or equal to -1, 7 is greater than 6, and 11 is greater than 5. Okay, so we are using the first property, the strategy. A4 is dominated by A3, right? A4, it is dominated by A3 because A3 is bigger, so we can delete this one. So after deletion, we can again use that property. Okay, we can go with rows or we can go with columns at any instance. It doesn't matter how you choose. Okay, similarly, you can go with columns first. It doesn't really matter. So after deletion, okay, so because A4, it is dominated by A3, so we have to delete A4. After deletion of A4, what will we have? Okay, now let us see. This strategy, it is bigger than this strategy B2. 6 is greater or equal to -5, 3 is greater or equal to 3, 4 it's greater or equal to -1, 3 is greater or equal to 2. So we have to delete the big columns. This one is a big column, so we can write after deletion of A4, B3 is dominated by B2. So B3 is a bigger column, that is why we have deleted it. Again, after deletion of B3, so we have deleted B3. Now let us check again. Alright, so over here, this one is bigger. B4, it is again bigger than B2. 9 is greater than -5, 3. Okay, so B4 is greater than B2. We don't have to check for this one because this number has already been deleted. So the deleted numbers you don't have to check for them. B4 is dominated by B2. Again, I say you can go with rows or you can go with columns. It depends on you. Okay, the order doesn't really matter. Some of you may be having a different order. It doesn't matter. Okay, now let us again check. Now 3, 2, 7, 5. Okay, let us see. 1, 3, 11 and 6. Okay, just let me check. Okay, so this one is a smaller row compared to A5. Okay, so A5 dominates A1 because A5 it's bigger than A1. So A1 can be deleted. After deletion of B4, we see that A1 is dominated by A5. So that is why A1 is again deleted. After deletion of A1, let us check. Okay, 3 minus 1. Again, A3 dominates A5. A3 dominates A5 because 4 is greater than 3, 2 greater than -1, 7 greater than 5, 11 greater than 6. A3 dominates, A5 is dominated by A3. So that is why A5 will also be deleted. This is what we will be having. Okay, so this is the solution. Okay, I will write some more. Again, after deletion of A5, what will we have? So this one it's bigger or equal to this, right? Similarly, B5 it is greater than B1. So because we have to delete the big columns, so B5 is dominated. B5 is dominated by B1. So we can delete B5. After deletion of B5, again B6 it is dominated by B1. Is dominated by B1. So we can even delete B6. So after deletion of B6, what will we have? Okay, we will be left with this matrix. As you can see, we can no longer use the dominance property for this one. Okay, just have a look. So we will be left with the payoff matrix is reduced to A2, A3, B1, B2. So over here we will be having the numbers 1, 3, 4, 2. So this one, it is a 2 by 2 game. We can easily use the formula for 2 by 2 game, but you have to be very careful. The corresponding strategy for A2 it is P2. You can find it out. Similarly, you can find P3. Okay, then you can find the corresponding strategy for Q1 by using the formula, and you can find Q1 and over here Q2. The other probabilities will be 0. For example, P1 it will be 0. P1 will be equal to 0. P4 will be equal to 0, and similarly P5 it will be equal to 0. Similarly, Q3, Q4, Q5 and Q6 will all be equal to 0. Q3, Q4, Q5 and Q6 will all be equal to 0. So I hope that is clear. Okay, so this is the dominance property. You can complete. Okay, you can complete this one by solving it as a 2x2 game, and then you can even find the value of the game. So this is all about the dominance property. Okay, now let us see another thing, which is the modified dominance property. The modified dominance property okay, I will just explain a bit, okay, and then I will just give you the notes later on. Okay, so when we were doing the dominance property, we just take a look at two rows. Okay, but if we are using the modified dominance property, we can take a look at 3 or more rows at the same time, or 3 or more columns at the same time. Okay, but we have to be very careful because now we will be using averages. Okay, for example, I will just give this example. Okay, do not worry, I will just explain. All the write-up I will provide it in the WhatsApp group. Okay, so let's see. 3, 14, 3, 4, 7, 4, 7, 2, 7. Three, 4, 7. Okay, so this one. Okay, maybe I will change it over here. Maybe I will write this one as 6 and this one as 6. Okay, if you see over here, maybe you can use or maybe you cannot use the dominance property, but what I am sure is that I can use the modified dominance property. So over here we will be looking at this. The modified dominance property is actually more difficult to implement because you are looking at more than 2 rows at once or more than 2 columns. So over here it is very difficult. Okay? If you are just seeing the dominance property, you cannot compare between this row and this one, because as you can see, this one is smaller than 6, whereas this one is greater than 2. So you cannot say whether this one or this one is the dominated row or the dominant row. Similarly, if you compare this one and this one, you cannot tell. Or even if you compare between columns, it is very difficult. Okay, but now we can use the modified dominance property, which is this. What is the average of row 1 and row 3? The average of row 1 and row 3. The average of row 1 and row 3, it is 6 plus 6, which is 12 divided by 2 because you are looking at 2 rows. So you will be having 6. Average of this one, it is 14, 16, which is 8. Average of this one, it is 10, 5. So the average of row 1 and row 3, it is 6, 8, and 5. So 6, 8, and 5 is bigger than the second row. So that is why this second row, it is dominated by the average of row 1 and row 3. So that is why this one is the dominated row. We can easily delete this one. We can delete this one because the average of row 1 and row 3, it is greater than the corresponding entries of row 2. So this is what the modified dominance property is. Similarly, if you are comparing 3 rows, if you are seeing 4 or 5 rows, you just have to take the average. Okay, the average of 3 rows, average of 4 rows, and then you can easily delete the small rows. So if a row is smaller than the average of 2 or more rows, then that row can be deleted. Then this row can be deleted. And similarly for a column, if a column is larger than the average of 2 or more columns, then that column can be deleted. So this is all about the dominance. as well as the modified dominance property. You just have to remember that the dominance property, sometimes it will reduce to a 2 by 2 game, a 2 by n game, or an m by 2 game. So solve accordingly. Until next time.